Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty, proudly serving Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties. Call 407-790-9957 or visit WeSellOrlando.net. Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you here with our summer sessions, and we're continuing on with actually our first preview of the 2018-2019 season, Eric. I can't believe it's already happening. We just finished the College World Series.
Yeah, I would know. I was at Oklahoma City for the women's version just recently, I felt like.
That was like last week, wasn't it? I mean, come on. Where does the summer go? God.
It's going, but it's fall when we're starting soccer, in college soccer and women's soccer. It's amazing. It's just around the corner. What are we? We're literally a couple of weeks away from them stepping on the pitch here for exhibition games, and the regular season is less than a month away.
Yeah, August 9th is when UCF opens up their exhibition schedule. They have 2 exhibition matches at home against Wyoming, August the 9th at 7 p.m. on the road in Jacksonville against UNF. On Sunday, August the 12th, the regular season opens at home against Florida Gulf Coast. On August 19th, that's a Sunday at 6 p.m. And UCF women's soccer this year comes in quite an interesting position. Last year, spurned on by the victory over North Carolina in overtime. What a victory that was, too, in OT, 2-1. UCF got hot, and what a year they had. It's 13-2-3 overall, 7-0-2 in the American. They won the American Athletic Conference regular season championship, and in the process outscored their in-conference opponents by quite the margin, 30-3 in the American Athletic Conference regular season. Managed to host the conference tournament and defeated Memphis in their first game on the Friday, and then Sunday faced off against USF, a team that they drew in the final game of the regular season to clinch the American Athletic Conference regular season title. But it goes to a scoreless. It goes through regulation and extra time scoreless, and UCF loses to USF 5-3 in PKs in the championship. So a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow. But right after that, UCF managed to, found out that they were going to host an NCAA match in the first round, and lo and behold, they draw Washington State, a very good team, very underrated team in Washington State, coming over from the Pac-12. Long trip for them. But they got out of here with the first round victory over UCF 1-0 in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So there were some good things from last year. There were some not so good things from last year. With a great senior class led by one Morgan Ferrara, who we had on earlier during our summer sessions on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. You can check that out in our feed and at blackandgoldbanneret.com. But Eric Lopez, the way the season ended was kind of as great as the whole body of work was. It was kind of a mixed bag toward the end, I think. Do you agree?
Well, I thought they got a bad draw, and I said it when it came out. You had a very good Washington State team that, oh, by the way, beat UCLA during the regular season. That was not a 4 seed.
You warned me ahead of time about how good they were, and you were right.
and I was there. I mean, they outplayed Washington. That's the thing. Soccer can be cruel sometimes. Not necessarily the best team wins in soccer. I mean, UCF dominated that match, really, in particular from most of the second half. Unfortunately, they couldn't put it back behind the net, and Washington State did, and that's just the way it goes in a one-game scenario like that. But it was a phenomenal year, and I think we forget this, and I have to remind people of this. Going into the season, like if we were talking a year ago this time, nobody was expecting that from UCF. I remember they were picked around the middle of the pack in the conference.
Yeah, they were coming off of a season where they were barely over 500.
Yeah, so that's the thing it was really one of her best jobs, Coach Sahaydak, that she's been here. Really, when you consider the fact of nobody really knew what to expect. I mean, this team really played itself into being one of the best UCF teams ever, dominating the conference in a regular season. They beat North Carolina. They crushed LSU at LSU. And really, I think it was a magical year. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, a couple of bad breaks. The USF match in the conference championship game, I remember I thought there were some missed calls there that went against UCF there that could have easily turned that around. So, but the exciting thing is what's going to be unique about this year. And the reason why I bring up the expectations that we're going into last year is there's going to be a lot of new faces this season. And you got a lot of talent to replace. But as Coach Sahaydak has shown, and I think UCF's history has shown, is they tend to reload and they have young talent. And it'll be interesting who steps up now. Who's the new face that we get to know? Because, Morgan Ferrero, when she first came to UCF, nobody knew who she was, right? And so that's kind of the cool thing about it in the college sport and in all sports, but in particular in soccer with the turnaround, is who steps up, who are the new names, and you never know what's going to happen here this year. So while I think I know you've got questions we're going to ask about this roster with the new faces. It's always eagerly interesting to see how the players that do come back respond from last year and that experience from last year. So it's always fun, and Coach Sahaydak with a fun, exciting style. In fact, I had a fan once told me, believe it or not, Jeff, that they rather go see a UCF women's soccer team with Coach Sahaydak and their style than go see Orlando City or even the Pride. They feel it's a much more fun and exciting quality of soccer, the entertainment standpoint. So imagine that. I mean, talk about high praise. I mean, you look at the Pride, for example, they have one of the best players in the world with Morgan and Martha, and yet you got this soccer diehards like, yeah, no, I'd rather see Coach Sahaydak. That's a compliment to her coaching abilities and how she kind of gets the most out of her players.
Yeah, and we'll get into that with Coach Sahaydak here in a little bit. And I think one of the keys here for the team coming into 2018 is they do have some players that are returning, that are good, that really stepped up last year and filled in some holes, and they're going to have even more opportunities this year. So let's dive right in, shall we? Here we are. It is our first 2018-2019 preview here on our Black and Gold Banneret Summer Sessions. And without further ado, let's bring in Tiffany Sahaydak, head coach of the UCF women's soccer team. And joining us now, the head coach of UCF women's soccer, Tiffany Sahaydak, joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Once again, Coach Tiffany, like we said before, I can't how does it happen that we just finished like the College World Series? I swear it was last week, and now we're coming up on soccer season. You guys start your schedule. Well, your first exhibition game's August 9th. That's right around the corner, isn't it? How does this happen? How the time flies like this?
Well, it's a hard task. I mean, we have a game on August 9th, and I haven't even seen my freshmen play yet. So preseason's very short. It's very condensed, but it's fun, and that's everyone has to do it. So all of us coaches have the same task in women's soccer. Well,
it's fun because it's like springtime in August, though. The new year is upon us, and looking back on last year, what a year you guys had, winning the conference championship in the regular season. Of course, the tournament didn't quite go, quite as much as you'd hoped for, but UCF was right there making national headlines all throughout the year. Conference play was remarkable. Looking back on it, I looked at these numbers. Last year, you guys outscored your conference opponents in the regular season 30-3. But this year now you've lost 29 of your 45 goals from last year due to graduation. That's, almost 2/3.
Don't tell me these things.
I know. but it's, that's the task that's before you, how do you, well, let's ask you about this, about that senior class. Like, what did they mean to you at heading out of last year?
Well, I first have to talk to them I have to talk to them about them as people, because that's what matters the most to me. It's just, they were an unbelievable group. They were unbelievable individuals as human beings, but then as a group, they were even stronger. They just led with, they had so much commitment, and UCF women's soccer was their priority, and they led in such a warm way, but then also knew how to get the best out of their teammates by making them compete, as hard as they can day in and day out. So just all together, it's just a class that, I think it's going to be hard to beat for any senior class. Not that we're in competition at all with that, but it was a special class, and I'm going to be sad coming up here in a few days when we start preseason not seeing their faces. But that's something that we're used to, having to let go of those seniors. And it's just a great opportunity for our young ones to step up this year. So we've got a lot of new faces and a lot of opportunity for them. So that's going to be a big point on this year.
So, Coach, you've got a lot of new faces, as you mentioned, in a kind of a short period of time. It is interesting. Soccer is unique in that regard. If you've got a quicker turnaround than other sports do when they get back in a semester. And you also have to deal with, potentially, players playing internationally as well. Talk about that and kind of how you have to juggle those things as you get ready for the season.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. The Under-20 Women's World Cup will be kicking off here soon. And fortunately and unfortunately, we have a couple players that have made their roster. So Steph Sanders and Dina Orshman, two of our, I'm considering them to be our big goal scorers of the season. We won't have them for the beginning of the season. So they'll be representing Germany in that World Cup. And then we also just have some other, there's Kanya Plummer. She's a transfer to us, and junior college transfer. She represents the Jamaican senior women's national team. She's actually the captain of that team. And she is going to be trying to help Jamaica qualify for the Women's World Cup next summer. So she needs to leave at times to be able to represent Jamaica to help them qualify. So we're going to be juggling our roster. We have, when you have really good players, they also have other commitments like, donning their national team jersey. So it's a real positive, but then obviously there's a little selfish part of me that wishes they were here with us. But obviously we support their national team careers. I know what that feels like, and I've always told them that in recruiting. If you get called in by the national team, I support you 100%. I know how that feels, and that's a real special deal. So, but we got to juggle it. But like I said, there's opportunity then. So we've got a big freshman class, and we've got kids that are leaving to go represent their national team. So here's a great opportunity for them to step in and make a difference for their team early on.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It is a nice problem to have because it means that you got some really good players on your roster nonetheless, especially when you come down the stretch. But what is the biggest challenge in getting those players back acclimated to playing for you after playing for the national team? Is it a conditioning issue? Is it a system issue? Like what's the biggest hurdle that you have to cross that maybe fans don't really know about?
Well, I don't actually think that there's a big hurdle for these kids that are going away with their national teams and coming back. I think they're pretty acclimated to jumping in and out of teams, so I don't think it's that's the biggest hurdle. I think the biggest hurdle, something I kind of alluded to earlier, was that we only have not even 2 weeks to prepare a brand new team every season for our first, exhibition match.
Yeah.
So, if we have 10 new players, like I said, I haven't even seen my freshmen play yet. So it's a brand new team every year. And we're not as senior heavy this year. So I think for me, and the biggest challenge this season, we have the talent and we have a lot of talent, but, can we mesh as quickly as we need to, just on and off the field, like soccer players tactically, and then also just socially, which that usually is an issue here because I feel like we have pretty good culture, but still, I think that's always the biggest hurdle. It's probably not even losing some of these kids to their national teams here and there and juggling that. It's really the big picture of getting everybody on board very quickly with all these newcomers.
Well, the good news is... sorry, go ahead, Eric. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I want to know about the newcomers. You've got so many of them, but in years past, Coach, you've had these newcomers that would come in and step in right away and contribute to the success. So who are some of the names that we should look out for and you're looking at as potentially some players that might surprise people? Because it's always been like that every year. It's like, whoa, where did that player come from? And next thing you know, they become a Mo, or they become whoever that they came out of somewhere before. So where are some of the names you're looking forward to that maybe some of the fans should kind of keep an eye on?
Sure. So we have a couple of newcomers as far as transfers, which we're really excited about. So I mentioned Kanya Plummer, Jamaican national team player, transferred to us from junior college. So, and she will be a junior. Yes, junior. And then Samantha Chung, she's transferring us from the University of Florida, and this will be her senior year. And I knew her for a long time, so I know she's an exciting player that will help us a lot. So those are two transfers that I feel like can really help our roster. And then some true freshmen. We have a young girl from France. Her name is Mathilde Cac, and she's a defender. And she's currently with her under-19 French national team playing in the Euros. So she's out. She's already gone playing with her national team. She was on campus. She's taking summer school. She's already out of here. Hopefully she goes back soon. I think she's coming back soon. And then, so that's an international kid. But then some domestic kids, local, as in Florida. I'm really excited about Kristen Scott. She's a forward, and she did really well with her club team. She is a local kid. And then Dayana Martin. She's from South Florida, and she's another forward. So, like I said, some of these kids need to step up because Steph and Dina are going to be gone, and I'm hoping that these girls will take advantage of this opportunity.
You mentioned how important Steph and Dina are to this team, and obviously their resume speaks for itself, playing for the German national under-20 team, but describe for us how just how warming it was for you to see them step up in the way that they did last year as freshmen and providing the production that they did. I'm sure you're looking at some of the younger players and you're like, okay, what they did, let's see if you can do the same thing, right?
Yeah, the thing that Steph and Dina have the edge is that when you're competing on your national team, you've just had that experience of playing at a really high level. Mm-hmm. And so some of our domestic kids haven't had that experience yet. Some of our kids have played on their youth national team, so that's good. But when we recruit nationally, most of the time these kids have the experience of playing on their national team. So we know when they come in, they're going to make an impact right away, where sometimes our domestic kids don't have that extra experience. So it's a little bit, you just don't know how they're going to transition to the college game. There's just a bigger difference between youth soccer and college soccer for the domestic kids. The internationals, they're used to the transition because they're already used to playing at a very high level since we recruit the best. So I lost my train of thought.
That's all right. The international,
Dean
and Steph, right?
Yeah. So Dean and Steph, what they've done. Sorry,
that's okay.
Dean and Steph, they already have that experience, but I thought it was phenomenal how they just came in and even socially and commitment-wise, they embraced. Sometimes it takes a while to really take ownership in a program or a team. You just got there, you're new, but they really embraced this college culture and UCF and our team and our wins and our losses, like they completely took ownership of it. And they're a huge piece of this team, and they were from the very beginning because their attitude was so open. And what's very exciting about Stephanie is that we didn't have Steph in the beginning of last year. We only really had her for maybe half of the season, maybe a little bit longer, but she wasn't 100% really, since she had torn her ACL before she came to us. So as good as Steph was last season, she should be at another level this year because she's 100% and she's not recovering from an ACL injury. So that's really exciting for us.
Coach, Jeff mentioned all the goal scoring you lost due to graduation, but I remember you told me this last year, and I remember Morgan even told me this last year, that Morgan told me that, you like it actually better when the scoring is more balanced, it's spread out. And she said that was kind of the mindset last year, and she didn't feel pressure to score because she knew that she had teammates that could score, and as a result, she had the year that she is. So is that kind of something you relay the message to the players? It's, hey, don't feel like you have to score every time. Yes, we want you to score, but you've got a full team that are capable of doing that, so don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's something I would address with the team, like, in a meeting, but because I don't want them thinking they shouldn't. I'm just kidding. But I think the team knows, like, when you have a talented team and you do have that talent across the board, I think just, inside they do feel like they can lean on their teammates. So I think I'll have a better idea to that question once we start, knocking the ball around, getting out there and training. But I think going into the season mentality-wise, it is for me. So I'm thinking my players are feeling the same way. We're just talented across the board. So I do think it's a situation where, if Steph's not having a good game, then Dina's going to step up. Or maybe one of those freshmen are going to step up, right? Or, we haven't talked about Zandy at all. But Zandy Soray, she, has been kind of quiet with stats, but I just think she's a kid that she'll be our attacking midfielder. And she's so quiet, but she's so good. It's just she needs to come out of her shell on her own. And I'm hoping this will be the year for her. So I do think it's a situation where we can lean on each other. And I think the girls, once they're out there and they're training together, they're going to realize, hopefully, that there are multiple people that will step up, just like last year.
One of the places where I think that you guys are the strongest right now is at goalkeeper, because obviously Vera Vara speaks for herself and the experience that she has. She's heading into her senior year. Last year, you did some platooning between her and Chloe Ngazi, who's a junior this year. You have a third keeper in the mix with Caroline Delisle, who comes in from Tampa. She's a freshman, but how does the situation in goal and on the back line look? Because, might you do the same thing this year where you platoon Vera and Chloe just to keep one another fresh in the early part of the season? How's that going to work this year?
I still don't know. And I'm telling you, the reason why it's so complicated is they're both very good.
They are.
Chloe ended up not becoming our starting goalkeeper, and Vera beat her out. It was during conference already once I think Vera started separating herself from Chloe. And, that's all credit to Vera. And she did that. But, Chloe's so good that we didn't want to lose her either by not playing her at all last year. So we kind of wanted just to start it off, even, and let's see where this goes. And they both had great games. And like I said, Vera just ended up separating herself and then became one of the best goalkeepers in the country. So I think it's going to be tough for Chloe. But, she's been training. Vera's been training. I think it's really healthy competition. And I love that we have another goalkeeper, a freshman, who can learn from those two. And maybe, Caroline won't be ready this year, but training, obviously, with Chris Cummings, our goalkeeper coach, but then under these two veteran goalkeepers, like, she's going to learn so much. So it's going to be quite the competition. And it like in numbers, it looks so clear that Vera's our starter. But I also have a lot of faith in Chloe too. So they're just both so good. That's a good situation to be in, I guess, when we have two starting goalkeepers, basically. So we'll see what happens. I'm being honest. I don't know how we're going to go. Because, sometimes you got to wait till preseason starts. I don't want to. Yeah. It's like how I feel about the starting lineup. I don't know who's starting in our first game because who I think might be fit and ready and sharp, what if they're not? Or maybe someone who I wasn't expecting is blowing us away. So you kind of don't know until you get out there.
But that's good. That gets the competitiveness up, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what's fair to the players,
Right. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by the Unger Real Estate Group, powered by eXp Realty. Sam Unger and his team proudly serve Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties, specializing in buying, selling, and new construction. Sam is a proud UCF graduate, class of 2006, and he's such a dedicated Knight fan that right now, if you work with him as your realtor, he will donate a portion of his commission to the UCF Football Excellence Fund in your name. So if you're ready to buy a new home or sell your current home, upgrade or downsize, Sam and his team have you covered so you can find the right home at the right price in the right location. So give him a call right now at 407-790-9957. Again, that's 407-790-9957. Or visit on the web at WeSellOrlando.net. Again, that's WeSellOrlando.net. You can also reach them on Facebook at facebook.com/WeSellOrlando. Get in touch with the Unger Real Estate Group today and make finding your dream home a reality.
Hello, Knight Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Coach, I'm curious because I talked to Coach Calabrese last season, and his team kind of finished strong last year. And he's told me, and he's not the first coach that said this, he kind of wished that college soccer, at least on the men's side, he wishes it was a 2-semester sport because he felt like the team started bonding late in the year, but it was already too late. The season was already basically over by the time they started clicking. Do you wish that soccer was maybe a 2-semester sport? Because it feels like, and you're not the only one that's dealing with this, but it's got a quick turnaround. A lot of people are going to learn their teams, and then by the time maybe you have a feel for it, oh, wow, before we know it, postseason's here. Do you kind of wish it was maybe a 2-semester sport so that way it doesn't feel like a sprint? Maybe it's more of, hey, we can figure out our teams and peak at the right time, and everybody's kind of on the same playing field?
I think it does make more sense for an athlete, like for a pure soccer athlete. We're not talking about being a student athlete or anything. If you're just looking at a soccer schedule and their performance and their recovery, squishing 25 games in 3 months is not great. It's actually a hard path. So it makes a lot of sense spreading it out between 2 semesters for their just for their recovery, and injury prevention. And like you said, it takes time to mesh and gel. And we could probably be more efficient with scattering reports. I mean, you play Thursday and Sunday. It's like you got to wrap up Thursday really quick, learn from it, but you're also preparing for Sunday. If you only have 1 game a week, I mean, I think we could even be better coaches for our players, be a little bit more detailed. So it does make a lot of sense. I know on the men's side, since they lose guys more to the professional game, it lines up for the men really well. But for the women, strictly looking at the athlete, I do think it makes sense going over 2 semesters. But there's also another side to me. I'm a mom. Sometimes I need a mental break from the competition and for how hard the fall is. I'm going to be honest. Spring, sometimes I get to breathe, you know? Even though we're recruiting and you're working hard, it's like I also have a little bit more availability for my children. So that's just the personal side too. So there's so much to look at. I'm not 100% one side or the other, but I can understand Calabrese's, from a purist, like soccer purist, the 2 semesters makes sense when you don't take anything else into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, that the Thursday, Sunday thing is just, I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, that's brutal. When you consider the fact that at basically every other level, you play one game a week, and then except for college where you're playing, I mean, and you're still playing the same 90 minutes. It's not like the games are shrunk to 60 or any of that. And you're playing, 2 games in 4 days. I mean, that's brutal at any level. I don't know how you guys manage to get through a season healthy is a miracle in itself, you know?
Yeah. Actually, that's the goal. We talk a lot about just being durable. Like, it's like, how can we recover? We don't train that much in the fall. We're recovering and trying to be durable. How can we, make our bodies as durable as possible and recover as quickly as possible? That's usually what we're doing, even more than training.
Yeah, now we look at the schedule, too. I mean, it's boy, oh boy, you've done it again, Coach Tiffany.
I know. I don't know why I do this. I look at it every year and go, what was I thinking?
Well, you start with Florida Gulf Coast. They're pretty good at home. That's the home regular season opener on Sunday, August 19th. And then, okay, here we go. Texas and Chapel Hill, North Carolina at Chapel Hill, at Miami, at Maryland, home for Florida, home for George Mason, at Stetson, and then you're in conference play by September 27th. My goodness, this slate. But again, this is how you've shaped the schedule to set UCF up, to set your team up for that sort of strong position as you head into conference play. So. Give us a little bit more, like a little bit more on some of these opponents and what you think. I mean, they're all going to be challenges, but which one do you think is going to be the biggest challenge out of all of them?
Well, I think, let's see. I mean, going to Chapel Hill and playing Texas and Carolina, I mean, that's going to be a really tough weekend,
Oh, yeah.
Texas is coming off of a really good season last year. So we know that game's going to be challenging. And then, of course, UNC is always going to be challenging. So just historically. So that weekend is tough. And that's a Friday, Sunday turnaround, not a Thursday, Sunday turnaround. So that's going to be a tough weekend.
Even better.
But yeah, we need to. But the reason why we do this is because if we want to be the best, we have to play the best. And if we want to win conference championships, we have to prepare ourselves way out of conference. But our focus is always on the NCAA tournament. So how can we position ourselves best to get into the NCAA tournament and host and get a seed? So, we're always looking big picture here because we feel like we can produce a team that can put together a team that can produce. So, but other games, it's always fun playing the Florida teams. There's always that rivalry. So whether we're going down to Miami and then having Florida at home is going to be great. I know just as a department, we're going to really be pumping up that game because of the rivalry and it being Florida, 2 in-state schools. So I feel like we can really get a lot of fans. And my hope is that we'll have a home team advantage there. So
yeah.
Guys, get your butts in the seat.
Well, and we know it. Well, we know it worked for that Carolina game last year. I mean, the place was packed.
Really
did. And it really did have an effect on the game, especially after you guys fell down a goal, came back, scored the equalizer, and then took care of business in overtime. When you look at in conference this year, what's your outlook on the American? As a whole, is it going to be again? Probably. Do you think it might be a little bit more than a 2-horse race this year? We know how good South Florida was last year, but who else might step up into that upper echelon in the conference alongside you guys?
Okay, well, you said South Florida already. Cincinnati has always been, the past few years they've really been a contender. So they're always tough to play with, and just their type of style and their mentality, they don't they don't stop. They're kind of a pain to play against. So they're always a team and we're playing them at home, so that's good. I'd much rather have them at home, so that's a positive.
Yeah, that was a tough match they gave you last year on the road too, right?
Yeah. And there's teams like that haven't done so well in the past, but I feel like the bottom of our conference is starting to get better, which is good for our whole conference. So, Houston has some players. In the past few years, Houston's been so great, but in the past few years, they've recruited a couple players that have been really good. So if they keep adding to that roster, they're going to be difficult. But it's so hard to say. I'm like looking at every game, and I'm like, SMU, I forget what that score was by the end. I think it might have been 3-0 or 4-0, and it that sounds like it was a cakewalk, but literally the game almost was 1-1 at halftime, and we dodged the bullet and it went 1-0, I think, and then we ended up opening up. But it's really hard to say. But South Florida is always going to be the big one because it's just crosstown rivals, a war on I-4. And they're just good. They're good. So that's always fun.
But I'm curious, coaches, do you, when you get together in the off season, do you talk about how to get the word out? Because I do feel like the American Conference sometimes gets a kind of the short stick as far as how good the league is. It's a multiple bid league. And you mentioned it's got the improvements in the league from the bottom teams. You got teams at the top that are as good as any that beaten quality teams non-conference. As coaches in the league, is that something you kind of try to spread? I was like, look, we're a really good league. This is not an easy league. This is a multiple bid league consistently now moving forward.
Yeah, I think we just have to keep getting the word out. It's I don't know if everyone's thinking about our conference right off the top, but once you start telling people who's in our conference, they're like, oh, that's a good league. Oh, they're in your conference. I think that people are still learning about our league. But once they realize who's in the league, they realize it is a very strong conference. So, yeah, I do think, our brand needs to become stronger, and we're working towards that every day, and everyone is. And it helps when you have good teams that are winning. And, so our coaches' job from all of our teams in our conference, we're doing the best that we can to have our names there ranked, our schools ranked nationally. So, last season was a good year for our conference, and hopefully we'll just keep getting stronger as a whole.
Well, we know you've done an amazing job with that. And now that you head into your sixth season at UCF, 5 seasons already in the books, that means that everyone from your initial class has moved on. I guess we'll wrap up with this. You were talking to us just before air about how not just current players, playing internationally, but a lot of your former players have had some good things happen to them recently. Tell us about some of your alumni and where they're going to be, and where the Tiffany Roberts Sahaydak coaching tree is branching out to.
Okay, so we have a couple of exciting some news from some players. Well, speaking of coaching, we have Morgan Ferreira. She has been announced as the, I believe, graduate assistant for Eastern Kentucky University, so for EKU. And this is an amazing opportunity for Mo because the graduate assistant actually takes on a huge role there because they only have one other assistant. They don't have 2 assistants. So Mo is essentially the second assistant there, and I believe she's going to be taking on recruiting responsibilities. She's getting thrown into the fire. I cannot wait to talk to her during the season to see how her scouting reports are going. It's just going from student athlete right into it. She's getting thrown in the fire. So, but she deserves it, and she did, go around France and look at opportunities to play professionally. And I think once she was around, taking on in that experience, she realized she wanted to maybe not play overseas. And that's what happens sometimes once you go through it. It's not everything you want it to look like. So we're really proud of her. And then Kathleen Sosa, she just made the roster. I don't know if you saw that on our social media. She just made the roster, the official roster for the 4 Nations tournament for Brazil. So she'll be playing alongside Marta. This is the first time that she's representing Brazil with the senior national team. She'll be playing against Alex Morgan in the U.S., so she'll be donning that Brazilian jersey. And I'm telling you, I told this to Tim when she transferred to our team. I'm like, this girl is good. Like, I'm telling you right now, mark my words, she's going to be playing in the Women's World Cup next summer in France. So she's already made a huge step by making this Four Nations roster. And if she stays healthy and keeps it up, I think she'll be playing the World Cup next summer. And, before she came to us, she was coming off the bench for Louisville, which is kind of a crazy story.
Gosh.
So, and then Bridget Callahan, she's still playing. She's playing with the Pride. So she's technically on roster with the Pride. And then she actually just got a high school coaching job. She told me this is not real news out there. But she just told me she's going to be coaching her high school team. So that.
Oh, that's good.
Once October, yeah, she's from South Florida. So, but yeah, we have some kids that are coaching now and going to grad school and then doing big things with playing soccer still. So it's pretty cool.
I know how proud you are of all of them too, because that's, you're an integral part of that. And I know that the reason that you are a tremendous reason why a lot of them do go into coaching, because they love playing for you and they love how you are as a coach. So that means a lot. So, all right, last thing I want to, before we wrap up, not to make anyone around here feel old or anything, but next year, 2019, we're heading into the 20th anniversary of the 1999 World Cup. So my question, 20 years. Well, the thing is, I still remember it like it was yesterday. I think I tagged you on Twitter a couple weeks ago about it, like searching for where you were after Brandy Chastain's goal and all that. But, and I'm sure when the time comes around, we'll talk more about it in depth. But my question to you is, do you guys have any plans coming up this year for the 20th anniversary of the 99ers?
I don't, nothing official, but I've heard some rumors, and we have, fun text messages. We have like group messages from the 99 team. So we're all still very connected, and and there's a few rumors here and there, but nothing official. So we'll see, but I hope so, because we love seeing each other and love getting together. And like I said, they're my big sisters. They took really good care of me. I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
What the heck? Wow! I just gave away my age. Just gave away my age, people.
It's a podcast. I can edit it out.
That's all right. It's just it's just a number. But yeah, 20 years is unbelievable. But I love that they're still my big sisters, and that we're still connected, and we'll be connected forever. So hopefully we do get together, because that's such a special team, and I'm very, very just blessed to be part of it.
That's awesome. I know you got a shout out from Mia last week. I know that and Michelle is always around, so it's fun. It's so wonderful to see, even I as like, now I'm going to give away my age a little bit. Even I as a 16-year-old watching that on ESPN and ABC and like jumping off the couch, at that game it's still probably the most amazing. That game against China in the final in the Rose Bowl is still the most amazing one of the most amazing sporting events I've ever seen. In person or on television, and the fact that all of you guys who made such great history, not just for the game of soccer, but women's sports in the United States in general, and that you're so close to UCF now. It's so cool to see, and it's always a tremendous pleasure to talk to you. It is so much fun. Tiffany Robert Sahaydak, UCF Women's Soccer. If fans want to reach out to you, Coach Tiffany, how can they do so?
Twitter or Instagram.
Gotcha.
Probably the best way.
TR Sahaydak on Twitter, I know. Is that right?
Yep.
Gotcha.
I think it's the same for Instagram. Yeah.
Right. And UCF Women's Soccer on Twitter is also at UCF_W Soccer, or you can also reach out to them on Facebook. Just search for UCF Women's Soccer. Tiffany Robert Sahaydak, UCF Women's Soccer head coach. Thanks again, Coach. It's always great to talk to you. We'll see you when the schedule fires up in 3 hours from now, it seems like.
I know, that's how I feel.
All right.
All right.
Tiff.
Well, thank you for spending some time with me.
Thanks. Thank you for spending time with us. We appreciate it, as always. All right. That was awesome, as usual. Thanks again to Tiffany Sahaydak for it is just so much fun to talk to her. I mean, it's no wonder her players just love playing for her. She is completely beloved by her players, alumni, current, and it's easy to see why. And I also want to send a special thank you to Megan Herboth as well from UCF Athletics for her tireless work throughout the season, helping out a bunch of sports, especially women's soccer. She's one of the best in the business, and thanks to her for helping us out as well. So, again, Eric, let's wrap this up. What do you think right now might be the outlook for UCF women's soccer heading into 2018?
Well, I mean, I'm going to take a page from her. We got to see this team on the field and see how they blend and kind of take it game by game and see how they do. And that's kind of the fun thing about it. I remember last year, you take it one match at a time. They remember they opened against South Carolina, and I remember watching it, and they were playing one player short for pretty much the whole match, and they still showed some signs, and then bounced back, won their home opener, and then beat North Carolina and took off from there. So, they're going to be challenged early, but I do think part of her philosophy in coaching and the scheduling is they'll learn a lot about them, and they'll improve, based on the competition they're going to play, which is very tough. It'll be a tough schedule, but I expect a typical Coach Sahaydak team that will get better. And thing is, you focused a lot about the goal scoring they've lost, but one thing that kind of gets lost is how good they are defensively.
Yeah,
starting at net, but also on the back line. When they have been a championship team and an NCAA tournament team, as good as they've been offensively, it's really been their defense that has been dominant. The stat that you mentioned where they dominated the conference, the stat that jumps out is how many goals they allowed.
Yeah. 3 goals.
What, 2?
3 goals throughout all the conference play. It was remarkable. And hopefully they'll have it. And we talked a little bit with Tiff about the goalkeeping situation, and you're right. It does start there, and it moves all the way up. I always thought that this team's attitude on defense is absolutely tenacious, and I think that's also part of it that's, like you said, fun to watch about this team. So it's going to be a lot of fun seeing them in 2018 as well. Just a reminder, their season does start in 2018, coming up with with 2 exhibition matches. Again, it will be August the 9th against Wyoming is their first exhibition match, and then they go on the road for an exhibition match against UNF in Jacksonville on Sunday, August 12th. Regular season starts August the 19th. That's a Sunday, 6 p.m. against Florida Gulf Coast. The big one, like Coach Sahaydak talked about, Florida, September 9th, Sunday, 6 p.m. on campus. Boy, is that going to be huge. Home opponents in conference, ECU, Cincinnati, SMU, Houston. Should be a busy conference schedule for UCF as well. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Eric Lopez, people can follow you at?
Eric Lopez Elo, and we got a lot of stuff coming out.
Yep.
Some exciting news coming out. We got some exciting other interviews coming out.
Yep, it's going to be a busy month. Oh, boy, is it going to be a busy month for here at Black and Gold Banneret. blackandgoldbanneret.com is where you want to be. Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret and UCF_Banneret on Twitter. You can reach out to me at Jeff_Sharon. Don't forget to follow Brian Murphy as well, Spokes_Murphy, and Derek Warden, _DS Warden on Twitter. Subscribe to this podcast if you don't already on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and tune in. Thanks again, Eric. We got a few more of these to go, don't we, here this summer?
We do. We hope to get a lot of the fall coaches in UCF ready, as well as still some alumni to come around and talk to us. And like we had Morgan Ferreira recently, we got some other ones that I think people will be very excited, and maybe a couple in particular they haven't heard from in a while, which is really interesting.
That's going to be fun. We're looking forward to that. All right, for all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon, along with Eric Lopez, saying thanks for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast Summer Sessions.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.